Question from Joe. This one is deep. My instructor is not approachable. What should I do? I'll tell you right off the bat, this is a tough spot because simply because we do look up to our instructors. We do want open communication channel with our instructor. And when we find ourselves in a spot where our instructor is not approachable, it is hard to, one, learn from them, two, it's hard to trust them. It is difficult to have conversations. It's even difficult to ask questions. And I don't know exactly what Joe means here by my instructor is not approachable. I don't know the definition not approachable. I don't know if this means that it could be several forms of this, right? We could have somebody who doesn't like to answer questions. It could be somebody who doesn't have time for you. It could be somebody who maybe doesn't take their job seriously, or maybe perhaps even doing something that you don't appreciate and they don't like feedback. We are all humans. We are humans, and putting yourself in a position when you are an instructor and you are very vulnerable to feedback, critique, questions, comments, it's tough. It's tough on the other side of the mat. I'm talking about the instructors. Now, obviously, if we create these walls and layers as instructors, now our students are unable to connect with us, and that connection, I think, is critical. And I even know from my personal experience, when I personally find myself as an approachable guy, but I do know that some students do have a hard time sometimes talking to me and asking these questions. So what's the suggestion? How can we solve this? Well, one, a conversation needs to take place at some point. So if you are a student and you need to talk to your instructor and your instructor is quote unquote unapproachable, we need to find a channel. We need to find a way to approach them. And that's the hard part. I would suggest talking to the staff. I would suggest talking to the peers, finding out how can you connect with that instructor. And two, have an honest and candid conversation, to be honest with you. I mean, end of the day, you are paying for a service. End of the day, if there are questions or concerns, they should be addressed. And three, perhaps that instructor doesn't know they're not approachable. There is that too, and we need to keep that in mind. Perhaps they think that nothing is wrong, and perhaps they just don't know any better. And from a human improvement perspective, I'm pretty confident that they want to be approachable. They would like to, at least one would think. They would like to have open relationship with their students. They would like to have some of these conversations. So always look at this from two perspectives. One is, how can I approach my instructor? How can I have this conversation with him? Whether easy or tough conversations. Some of the conversations are tough. Some of the conversations we don't want to have, right? But how can we do that? So find channels to really get there and be respectful, be kind, be just nice. And see how you can talk to them. At the same time, see the other side, see the other perspective, try to understand why this is happening, but at some point, we might find ourselves in a spot where we've done everything we can and nothing is changing. And that's a tough spot, and honestly, I've been in these situations in the past. So I can definitely relay when you know that you tried multiple times, it's still not working, and you cannot get through that channel of open communication. And then I think you need to ask yourself whether this place is good for you. And sometimes these questions are very tough. Sometimes these answers are not what we want to hear, but what's important is that we surround ourselves with people who love Jiu-Jitsu as much as we do. What's important that we find a place that has a community and the dynamic that we are seeking to make us successful for Jiu-Jitsu. Remember, a phenomenal Jiu-Jitsu academy doesn't mean that it's phenomenal for you. There is this dynamic that takes place in each academy that attracts specific demographic of people. And if you are not fitting in that demographic, you might feel a little isolated. You might feel as not part of the group. You might feel as you are unable to talk to the instructors. And, at that point, the journey of Jiu-Jitsu becomes very difficult. And often, unfortunately, students quit and they stop training because of that. So let's address some of these, let's try to address some of these important items ahead of time. Let's do everything we possibly can to create these communication channels with staff, with instructors, with our peers, with our training partners. But when we do find ourselves in a spot where we've done everything, well, perhaps it's time to move on. No matter what, don't quit. Don't just hang your belt and be done with it. There are always ways to fix the situations and improve our training. I'll see you on the mat. Peace.